Hi, Carrie Burchell here, wanting to share some strategies with you on how to leverage the space in meetings to make them even more productive and influential. All right, so how many of you have a guess on what percentage of communication is nonverbal? I'd love to see in your chats. Tell me what percentage you think of communication is nonverbal. I say this because how a room is set up, or the room itself, is actually a form of nonverbal communication. So let's dive into this great work. So, there we go. Your answer, 93% of communication is nonverbal. So when we think about how a room is set up, there's a direct influence on how that meeting goes and ultimately how productive the meeting really is. So let's break it down. All right, we got a desk, right? So how the desk is positioned in the room and where you're sitting in relation to it matters. So if you're the leader, are you behind the desk and your employee is sitting in front? Think about it, right? That's pretty kind of basic consideration. Well, what about the chairs? The chairs in an office bear with them a certain degree of power. So you have like the chair, right? This has nice back. I might have in my office really simple chairs. So as the leader, I'm sitting in the office chair and everyone else gets kind of the simpler chairs. It says something and it sets the tone for that hierarchy. Now, of course, some meetings need to have the hierarchy. When there's a tough message to be delivered, when it's a performance issue, not just development opportunity, but an issue, then those dynamics matter. So just use them intentionally. Let's look at some more. What about the power of the seat? So when I make someone sit in the other chairs, it dilutes that. Many offices have little corner seating areas where both people might actually sit in kind of the same simpler chairs, if you will. Take a meeting conference room. Where is the power seat if you're sitting around a large table? Of course, at the end of the table. And there are times if you're leading a larger meeting, being at the head of the table matters. There are times when being along the edge, embedded in the team, that it might be more influential. Let's think about people's space bubbles. So I often say that if you're working with a team that is trying to get out of that storming, norming, forming, performing, getting out of the forming stage and really trying to storm to figure out how they gel together, I really advocate for a smaller space. We kind of need to bump each other's coffee cups a little bit or elbow each other and apologize. We need an excuse to interact. So how I set up the space matters. If it's a long conference table and I want to make sure nobody sits at the end, maybe I'm the leader and I want to embed myself in the team, but I know that there's a dynamic kind of power source that wants to sit at the end of tables. I might spread out maybe some documents that need to be passed out, or the keyboard and the remote if I'm using the projector in the office. I'm going to make it so that the power seat cannot be taken by anyone. Or I take it up myself, or we leave it open. Just considerations, right? Different options, take some intentionality to think through. So what about windows? Right? The light coming in the room really ignites our brain firing. So sitting by windows is just going to have a different influence on the conversation than sitting away from windows or having the blinds drawn. Think about a smaller conference room where it's maybe not an outside window. You have those windows that go to the hallway or the corridor. I'm always intrigued by organizational norms where we close the blinds on those smaller conference rooms, right? It's like what's going on in the meeting is secret. It's just not allowed to know about it. It says something. That's part of the 93% of communication is nonverbal, right? And so it sets a tone when you're in that conference room. Maybe your leader's there first and you enter. As the employee entering a conference room with the blinds drawn, I'm getting a nonverbal communication from you, whether you mean it or not. So this video is really about helping you think intentionally about how you manage those things. I had somebody come and visit my house lately and was teasing me about this space to write because I work at home. And from here up, right, my background looks pretty clean. My desk, I'm a piler. Like, I don't put stuff in the drawers. I've got drawers that are empty. And the friend that came over and said, Carrie, that's exactly what it looks like, right? Clean for the backdrop. And your desk is a hot mess. My desk would be a terrible desk to meet across because you wouldn't have any space to write anything on, right? Or if we are sharing this space, I might go to the end of my desk, obviously clear off some of it, and make sure that both of us have equal amounts of space to write on. Space matters when we think about how meetings go. So let's talk about space in terms of what types of meetings what types of meetings happen in what kinds of spaces. So let's say that you have a performance evaluation. Throw it in the comments. Where do you typically have performance evaluations? And while you do that, I'm gonna make sure that all of these ideas here stay on the screen for us. Yeah, when I look at your comments, right, we have it in the boss's office. So we've talked about some considerations in a meeting space. Think about your typical performance evaluation happening somewhere else, right? What about a coffee shop? Neutral space, the tables are clean, the chairs are all identical, right? Change the space and you're going to change the conversation. What about a conference room in your building, right? Just go to a physically neutral space. And if you're meeting in a conference room and there's a long conference table, consider meeting on the corners of the table versus across from each other, because across looks combative. If you're thinking about teams getting together and meeting, maybe off campus, right? Changing up the space changes the conversation. Where is the most creative space you've ever met for a meeting? When we do our live next week on Facebook, I'm alternating between LinkedIn Live and Facebook. We're going to talk about spaces out of buildings, like really getting creative. So I'd love to hear from you. What is your most creative space? And that's going to seed some of our thinking for next time. So far, in our private communication group that anybody can join, it's free. It's just a bunch of smart people sharing ideas about communication. We've heard park bench, the bus, and just outside in general. So let's keep that going. Next week, we're going to get back together and we're going to talk about space and its influence on how well meetings go and how productive they become. So I'm Carrie Birchall. I'd love you to be a part of our Tough Conversations workshop I have. I've got a Post-it note on my desk because I have Post-it notes everywhere, as we've already kind of imagined. January 6th at 1 o'clock Central Time. For $99, I'm offering a 2-part workshop. The second part will be decided when the group comes together. And we're really going to dive into how to have those tough conversations in ways that people leave the conversation, not only sort of understanding the true north, but really engaged with how they show up and how they need to maybe shift how they show up because you've done such a beautiful job delivering the tough conversation. So if you're interested in the tough conversation workshop, let me know. It would be a great way to kick off 2022. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Bye.